Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year. It is the year 2024, which is horrifying as I realize that the age of 30 is bearing down upon me. But you know what? It's okay. We're all having a good time, right? We're all definitely not freaking out about most things. The world is going fine. It's all good. But you know, I thought, what better way to start off the new year than by turning over a new leaf? And by a new leaf, I mean finally watching Robert Sephyr's content, or Sepehr, I guess. This appears to be the guy. I'll look him up again just to be sure. But yeah, this is the guy. Apparently he is Tartaria's best guy. And granted, that's what they told me about Mind Unveiled in the first place, originally, but...
Ian,
yes?
why'd you turn all the lights off? I gotta put the groceries away.
Oh, it was kind of a little too bright. I don't know, I needed the ambiance.
I gotta put the groceries away.
Well, see, now the ambiance is ruined. Ruined!
Okay, would you like
I'm kidding. Anyway, I was told Robert Sephyr's the guy. Also, you guys can see Peep Archie looking very majestic over in the bottom left corner of my camera. But, oh, what a good boy. So anyway, we're going to be taking a look at Robert Sephyr's content. Should sure be interesting, because everybody basically said this is a much more academic breakdown, much more academic look at Tartaria. This is his video on Tartaria. It's 4 years old. I went to look at it. Thing is, he's got a lot of videos, and there's not really a Tartaria playlist, you know? There's just a playlist of all of his videos, and then this. And a lot of it's interesting. But yeah, so I don't really know what to think. I don't know what this dude is about, aside from what I've been told by Mind Unveiled supporters. There are a couple of ones in here I'd like to look at. You know, I wanted to take his overview video first, though. So that's what we're going to do. Also going to maybe take a look at some, whatever ancient Aryan fairy tales is. Esoteric pagan anthropology. Like, whoo, boys, we are going to be getting some interesting stuff this evening, let me tell you. Mysterious origins of Finland and Sami. All right, there we go. Tool we can talk about. Secrets of esoteric Christianity. That's obviously got to get up there. Ancient Native American. There's a lot of stuff in here. So, yes. Ooh, that is nice.
It's like plush.
Yeah, this is Pagan Origins of Valentine's Day. Well, that one actually I think might be legit. Granted, I thought some of the Christmas stuff was legit for a little while too, and it's not. Also, there are some super chats. Let me take a quick look at that. Tears of Tartaria is what I should have called the stream. Damn, that's a good one. Can I change that on the fly? I can. Tears of Tartaria. Let's go. Beautiful. Thank you for the suggestion. Tartaria, Sumit, and Paten. How many videos until calipers show up? Who knows? We'll see. But I just want to go through and snag Mystery Religion of Atlantis. I mean, double-headed eagle, the legendary race of little people. Like, this is white giants of the new world. Has gotta. I mean, there's swastikas already, so that's got to be something. I mean, I guess we'll start there. Origins of sacred holidays and their occult meaning. All right, that'll be an interesting one too. Yeah, this is the problem. Is like I popped in here and I was like, oh, let's look at what else he's got, and oh boy, there's just so much here. Secret history of the Scythians. Anybody who tells you who puts secret history into the title is someone you should just immediately be suspicious of.
Hey, I have a book called Secret History.
And what is it?
It's a fictional novel.
See? That's my point. Ooh, he's got a Pagan Origins of Halloween video. We gotta pull that one up. All right, let's see. Let's start with this one, the basic Tartaria Let's go.
А в деревню заехал, коней напоить, вздумал деревню гурьбой удивить. Эх, трай-ля-ля, вздумал деревню гурьбой удивить.
Happy New Year to you guys too.
Старуха сметлива была, дочку Маруську с собою вела. Эх, трай-ля-ля, дочку Маруську с собою.
The Great Wall gives me bad vibes. Oh, they sound beautiful. Like these two things, Slavic vocal harmonies and the Great Wall, should have nothing to do with one another at all. Oh, we forgot. I'll go back tomorrow. Yeah, this might be the gold mine of content. At least for this channel for reaction stuff. Woo boy.
There's been a lot of hype about
That's a lot of hot cocoa.
Tartary lately, and what some are claiming is an effort to hide
Okay, absolutely wild disparity in audio leveling.
a significant chapter of human history. There's been a lot of hype about Tartary lately, and what some are claiming is an effort to hide a significant chapter of human history. Up until the late 18th century, the great empire of Tartaria was a vast country located in northern and central Asia, stretching eastward from the Caspian Sea and from the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean.
Sushi's ready.
It appears on ancient maps, had worldwide influence,
Sounds good.
and once was ruled by an Aryan nobility.
Yeah. Yep. This is going precisely where I thought it was going to go, and it took it like a minute and 45 seconds to get there. Oh boy. See, here's the thing. In legitimate history circles, the term Aryan just isn't used anymore because Indo-European is preferred. It's more accurate. It makes more sense for what you're talking about. Aryan is a very old term that just does not... There's no reason to use the word Aryan.
Unless you're a Nazi.
Exactly. There is no reason to use the word Aryan in modern scholarly discussion unless you're trying to take the conversation in a certain direction.
Here we see a modern interpretation of Genghis Khan. Yet, in reality, Genghis Khan
See, I would love to do an African revisionism video because it's just as bonkers, but I have this color of skin, so that often does not go over well with the internet police. Even if I were being completely respectful, I would get all sorts of hate for it, so...
Khan had red hair. And
Alright, here we go.
Here we see a modern interpretation of Genghis Khan.
Well, that certainly doesn't look modern to me. Get the snipping tool out. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later. We're gonna hit that. Actually, you know what? I'm being silly. I am being silly. Where is Google Lens? Lens! Come here, boy. Where? Search images with Google. There we go. Alright, what's this from? I hate that the very first thing that came up was the Ben 10 fan wiki. Why? Like why?
Aiden, I go get sushis.
Genghis Khan got canceled? Okay.
I'll be right back.
What is this? I want to know what this image is, though. I want to know what it's from. Like, because this is clearly a painting. No, not what I wanted. Good boy, Archie. Yeah, what is this? What is this picture from? How is it not finding it? Where is this from? Is that Age of Empires? That is Age of Empires. Where is this?
Here you go. Have fun.
Wait, I'm so confused about what this picture is now, though. Because this is clearly a painting, but when is it from? I want to check when this painting is from. It's used a lot, but it's not coming up anywhere. This is so weird. Does it show up on the Wikipedia? Because it's definitely more modern style art. I'm just wondering how modern we're talking about. This is so weird. What is going on here? All right.
Yet, in reality, Genghis Khan had red hair and either green or blue eyes.
Okay. So we're going with the Persian historian Rashid al-Din, who lived from 1247 to 1318. So considering Genghis Khan was, I believe, the same period. No, he's earlier. So, okay, yeah, here's Genghis Khan's lifetime. Here's Rashid al-Din. Rashid al-Din, as you can tell, was born 20 years after Genghis Khan died. Also, this is not a direct citation. This is from something else. Rashid al-Din on Genghis Khan. Okay. Is there a description of Genghis Khan in any of his works? What is going on with you two? Did you just open the door? Ridiculous creatures. Both of you. Ridiculous. Sincerely ridiculous animals. I love you both, though. So I'm not finding this. This is what they always do, too, is they never actually use legitimate quotes. And the reason they don't use legitimate quotes is because even if this were a paragraph right here that included a quoted phrase out of the entire paragraph, I can go and look at it. I can go find it. And I can tell you if it actually says that by not giving me anything, any source at all to look into. I now have to read all of Rashid al-Din's writings on Genghis Khan to find this. So let's see. Rashid al-Din on Genghis Khan's appearance. Okay, so this is Carolina Asia Center. This is from 7th grade world history. You telling me Genghis gets brought up that many times? God. Green eyes. Okay, perhaps the most surprising... Alright, for such an influential figure, very little is known about Genghis Khan's personal life or even his physical appearance. No contemporary portraits or sculptures of him have survived, and what little information historians do have is often contradictory or unreliable. Okay. Yeah, so... Interesting. Definitely not helpful. Also worth pointing out that red hair and green eyes do not a white person make. So I mean, this is the thing that bothers me here is like, is it possible that Genghis Khan had blue or green eyes? Yes. Is it possible he had red hair? Yes. Do we have anything beyond what appears to be a single description of him written by a man who never met him and lived 20 years after he died? Is that the only evidence we have? Yes. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Genghis Khan absolutely didn't have green eyes and red hair, but I will sit here and happily tell you that there's very little evidence he did.
The same way that the tall, slender, blue-eyed, blonde-haired Aryan Buddha has been transformed.
They're really just using this word Aryan to mean a lot of things that it does not mean.
Formed in modern times.
Somebody found the painting source? Wait, what was the painting source? Where was it? When I say modern, I mean modern in the sense of like 1600s onwards. Like post-medieval period. Shaka Zulu was Irish.
Into a fat or sometimes rather obese East Asian man.
I mean, he was from India.
Ancient Buddhist caves, we can see the true origins of the ancient cultures of China, Iran, India, where blonde and red-headed monks wear Chinese silk with Persian patterns, complete with a dot on their forehead.
Those did not appear to be blonde. So these guys are clearly not white, clearly have dark hair. They just don't match the description. Ooh.
I figured I would just sit here.
That you can do.
Kind
Or
of
if you want,
hide in the
do you just want to
corner.
get 2 plates?
No.
Okay, you want to be around me? Okay. You're cute. The sushi just arrived because I have not eaten since noon. So, thank you. So we've got to, of course, have that out. This is the problem with my life is I just have no consistent schedule anymore.
You could make one.
You say that, but could I? But yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing here in this video so far is that I bopped her. Sometimes you gotta bop the dog, Amanda. Sometimes the dog must be bopped. I don't enjoy bopping the dog.
I think you enjoy bopping her. You don't enjoy actually punishing her, but
No.
I think you enjoy bopping her.
Okay, maybe I enjoy bopping her a little.
I think you enjoy bopping her.
Just because it's funny. You know?
She's so pretty.
She's just a little silly when you bop her and she's like, hey,
It's true.
what's she doing?
Ella.
Ella! Stop! You guys can't even see what she's doing right
No,
now, but
yeah.
she's being
Gremlin.
a gremlin dog. Like the most gremly... Gremly?
Uh-huh.
I don't think
Does
gremly
Ella
would be a
still
word.
have laryngitis? No, Ella does not have laryngitis anymore, but thank you for your concern. It was very funny while it lasted, but
Yeah.
she's back to screaming at her normal volume and pitch.
Sadly. Sadly, she has returned to being just the most vocal dog in the world.
I mean, like, I'm glad she doesn't feel sick
Take a
anymore.
couple of these guys, too. But, here.
I want to sit here.
I know you can sit there. I was just like...
Oh, okay.
I took them off so you could use this as a plate. Mm-hmm. See? I'm a considerate boyfriend. I am a generous god.
A generous god.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a 300 reference.
Your last comment.
What was the last comment? Aiden, simp. For her, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
She does my laundry and she cooks me foods, so I can't complain.
I'm basically his live-in housekeeper.
I believe the term is girlfriend. You are my girlfriend, which means we split chores and
I know, and I'm just kidding. I'm just being a rat.
I don't make her wear a maid outfit, for the record. In case anybody was curious, I do not. Although she would look very cute in one, but
Yeah, okay. Keep dreaming about it. We don't have a dog, but we have a dog-sized cat who likes to scream if that counts. So that counts. That counts.
I guess that counts.
with Persian patterns, complete with a dot on their forehead.
We see the red beard
He didn't notice this.
and red hair.
Required to not associate with.
Also, I do have to say, pigment over time turns red. Like, we find mummies with red hair at an exceptionally high rate for the actual rate of red hair. As pigments age, they lose their original color to an extent.
It's a shame that these figures have all been defaced by people of other faiths at some time in the past. But it's still, it's very easy to see what they looked like, and we can tell who they were. He's got the red beard, red hair parted in the middle.
These
Because there's no other possible explanation, right?
Silk Road Aryans left mummies dating back 4,000 years, as well as swastikas, predating Buddha by millennia, and predating any East Asians in China by at least 1,000 years.
This dude is absolutely 100% the type of guy who would say that the Nazis are just misunderstood.
Jesus Christ.
While some associate the swastika with Hitler, I would like to point out that this Russian swastika from before Hitler's time, before World War II, shows the swastika in the exact same position. That said, this is a United States Boeing aircraft with a swastika painted on the side.
Yes, the Native
It
Americans
seems
also
to me
used the
that
swastika.
the
A
evil
lot of people used the
connotation was
swastika.
not from Hitler, but from the winners of World War II, who seemed to have something to hide.
Very bad.
What did I just say? What did I just say?
May I have the soy sauce? Then they give us one soy sauce.
Oh, they only gave us one? Lame.
They gave us 2 dumpling sauces, but only 1 soy sauce, so we must share the soy sauce.
That's fine.
You're a soy boy.
Don't call me a soy boy on my stream.
I'll call you what I want to call you. If I
Yeah.
forget something, I'll shut up.
It took me 2 seconds. After, like 2 seconds after I said, this guy is the type who would say that the Nazis were just misunderstood, for him to say, in as many words, the Nazis are just misunderstood. Utterly incredible. Really just bang up work, Tartaria, guys. I said Mind Unveiled was anti-Semitic, so you told me to check out an even more anti-Semitic guy. This is cool. It sounds very good. I hope they
Did you know that
aren't
Genghis Khan
mad.
actually came from the clan of the so-called Black Tartars? Let's go back and try to figure out where the people who became the Tartars came from. This is the Great Steppe around 300 BC. For the Tartars, the steppe is as much of a civilizational cradle as the Mediterranean Sea is for Europeans. But
This is where it gets dangerous. The Tartars are a real ethnic group. They're not, that's the wrong spot, but... Ah! Hang on.
Tartars came from. This is the Great Steppe around 300 BC. For the Tartars, the steppe is as much of a civilizational cradle as the Mediterranean Sea is for Europeans. But if the Mediterranean Sea makes you think of olives, vineyards, and ships, then the Great Steppe should provoke visions of horses, pastures, and yurts. The Chinese divided the Tartars into three types: white Tartars, farmers living immediately beyond the Great Wall of China; black Tartars, nomads living in present-day Mongolia; and wild Tartars living without khans in the forests of South Siberia.
By the way, the Chinese did not use the word Tartars at all. It was a French word. It's actually a Persian word that was brought into French.
Governed by chiefs and shamans. These are the ancestral lands of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan came from the Black Tartars. He called his dynasty the Mongols, or the Great Moguls. They lacked the stereotypical ethnic features that you think of today. Genghis Khan himself was tall, red-haired, and blue-eyed.
So, whoever made this graphic in this video he's using has no idea what they're talking about. You can't just say because one singular source claimed that he looked a certain way that he did. That's not how this works. It is ironic because I also do think he's talking about the Huns here, by the way. Who the Huns and the Mongols may have been the same ethnic group. It's not really relevant. They're separated by, nearly 1,000 years. But what they'll do is they will trash guys like me for only reporting the mainstream narrative, the approved narrative, the history as it was taught. And they'll say that we don't think of ourselves and, we just repeat whatever, agrees with our confirmations. Then they'll go and do this, where the moment they find a single thing that supports their side, they will take it as clear-cut, unquestionable proof. And that's just not how it works.
A typical European. In 25 years, Genghis Khan and 100,000...
Also, blue eyes and red hair is not a quote-unquote typical European. Like, at no point in history has the typical European had those features.
Soldiers conquered more lands and peoples than all the Roman emperors in 400 years.
Well, they conquered a larger area of land and possibly a greater number of people. Think about the Mongol Empire. Oh, Mad Vlad's got more Skinwalker nonsense. The thing you gotta understand about the Mongols is that while their empire was larger than the Roman Empire, it was a lot less populated. There was a lot of empty space in there that just, it's technically land their empire controlled, but there was nobody living there. So it's a little bit different of a situation. Well, you see, JD Petty, the goal here is not to just distrust mainstream media and try and find the truth. The goal Robert Sephyr has is to convince you, and himself, that Genghis Khan was apparently white.
There was a race of people known as Tartarians, which many historians know little about. Some speculate that they were once a great and sophisticated empire. Old maps clearly identify Tartary, or Great Tartary, as a huge landmass.
He was actually right there. It is identified on maps as a huge landmass.
People were described as Turkic, an ethno-linguistic culture.
Guy does not even realize that he has already destroyed his own point by including this soundbite, which refers to them as Turkic. You know what Turks aren't known for? Red hair and green eyes.
found throughout Asia, North Africa, and parts of Europe.
I said, wait, actually?
Turks? Turks are European, but they're not white.
Oh, I thought you said they were known to have red
No,
green
no.
eyes.
No, Turks were...
Oh, yeah, no, I know they're...
To the Crusaders, they were indistinguishable from the Saracens. Or from the, they were called Saracens, despite the fact that they weren't Arabs.
No, I know. That's what I thought. That's why I was confused.
Yeah.
But I just misheard. Because I'm stupid.
I love you.
Love you too. I gave you all my sushi.
Mm-hmm.
You may have the rest, actually. Like,
Oh,
I'm done
really?
with it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Back to it. By the way, these flags are extraordinarily misleading. Because there was a Khanate referred to as the Khanate of Tartary. But it was a very small Khanate that did not bear that name. What? Oh, I'm going to keep these guys. To them. We don't know what they necessarily themselves called it. We're also not positive regarding what their, like, if they were even really a kingdom or a collection of chiefdoms. Like, nobody really knows what was the deal. But I can't remember the name of the country off the top of my head. I'll see if I can find it.
Tartary had its own flag, their own kings, and their own language. Maybe these Tartarians were related to the original three-dimensional Aryans who appeared during the Age of Aries.
Oh boy. Yeah, this is getting weird. Aryan is not a term that refers to people after 500 BC. It's actually a term that refers to the people who came out of, well, like, this region up here. Like, a long time before this. We're talking like 3000 BC. So, like, Aryan refers to people coming from up here in 3000 BC, not people down here. Now, are Persians Aryan? Yes. Are certain populations of India Aryan? Yes. That's because they started up here and came here.
Descendants of some of those who survived the cataclysm which wiped out Atlantis.
Oh boy, here we go.
This is interesting because in Herodotus's histories, he talks about a people called Atarantians.
Okay, no. No. No, because we know the etymology of the word Tartar, and it's not that. It comes from a Persian word meaning horsebacked messenger. That's what it means. And it comes from the Middle Ages. Like, I believe the 1300s is when it appears in Europe. And it is a term originating with the Mongols. Like, that is how the Persians described the Mongols. So no, Herodotus, living in the 5th century BC, was not describing Tartaria.
Could he be referring to the Tartarians, possibly descendants of the Atlanteans? The Internet Encyclopedia, encyclopedia.com, states that after the Bolshevik Revolution, Tartars were targeted for extermination.
Yes, ethnic Tartars of the Turkic minor ethnic group living in the area around the north of the Caspian Sea. Between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. That's the Tartar homeland.
In the 1920s, most Tartar leaders and intellectuals
That says Tatar, actually, which is the same term, but spelled differently. And pronounced differently.
wanted independence were eliminated through execution.
Listen, right here, it's so obvious that they're overthinking this. Because In the 1920s, most Tatar leaders and intellectuals who wanted independence were eliminated. Yes. Because they wanted independence for their small region in southern Russia.
Or exile. This policy against the Tartars continued to some extent.
And they'll do this too. They'll use mainstream sources until the mainstream source disagrees with them. So the mainstream source is only valid until it disagrees with them. After that point, it's, the mainstream source is wrong. Actually incredible.
Extent until the early 1950s. It is important to point out, as the victors write the history books, they occasionally try to eliminate important aspects which they see as counterproductive to their own importance.
That is true, but it does not mean the rest of it is.
In 1999, a CIA document was released into the public domain, written in 1957, suggesting that the Soviet government set out to erase certain aspects of Tartarian history from the official record.
Yes, certain aspects, such as
essentially rewriting history to suit their agenda and modern narrative. When considering that the Bolshevik Revolution was partly financed by the international financial cartel, it opens up.
I'm sorry, what? What? What are they talking about? The Bolshevik Revolution was financed by the international finance cartel. Like, this is the thing, is they just use a whole bunch of words. What he's trying to say is that the Jews funded it. But he can't say the Jews funded it, because this is YouTube. Now, I can say that he's trying to say the Jews funded it, and he knows he's trying to say the Jews funded it. The problem is, there's no evidence that any organized Jewish institution funded the Bolshevik Revolution. It was mostly ethnic Russians.
A whole avenue of historical
Yes, Kellen, I would agree this is all Marx's fault. I am 100% with you.
deceit. After the German National Socialists came to power in 1933, a strong relationship developed between themselves and the Iranian Shah. A great deal of trade took place between the two countries, with almost 50% of Iranians' overall trade being with Germany. The Iranian people were immune to the German racial Nuremberg laws because of their Aryan heritage.
Yeah, because Iranians, Persians, also came from up here, where the Aryans were from.
In 1935, the Shah asked the international community to refer to the country as Iran, land of Aryans, instead of its Western adopted name of Persia.
Okay, Persia was not its Western adopted name. It was never called Iran before. I'm also not even sure that that's correct as to how it became called Iran. But yeah, Iran, I believe, does come from Aryan. Thing is, once again, they didn't call themselves that. Persia was the Greek term. It came from Farsa. From Farsi, I believe, in fact. The Persians would have called themselves the Medes, the Achaemenids, any of these different names that referred to them. But they did not call themselves Aryans.
In 1939, Germany gave the Iranians a library of over 7,500 books relating to German science.
It's not a lot of books.
And the close relationship between the two Aryan cultures. Because of these close ties and volume of trade taking place between Iran and Germany, the Allies put pressure on the Shah to scale down his dealings with the Axis powers.
Oh my god, really? They put pressure on the guy to shut down his dealings with their enemy? Wow.
Trying to keep all sides happy, the Shah promoted his country as neutral. Unconvinced of this, the Allies invaded on the 25th of August 1941. Convinced of the Shah promoted his powers. Trying to keep all sides happy, the Shah promoted his country as neutral. Unconvinced of this, the Allies invaded on the 25th of August 1941 in a joint Anglo-Soviet attack on Iran. 3 weeks later, the Shah and any pro-German government officials were asked to resign. The Shah's son replaced him as head of state, allowing the Allies control of the country's oil fields. Between the 28th of November and the 1st of December 1943,
Yeah, anybody who can't be bothered to stop recording and restart their sentence when a car drives by the microphone is not somebody you should listen to.
the Tehran Conference took place, the first time the big three Allied leaders had met together during the war, to discuss future strategy concerning a second front against Germany, and also the need to recognize Iran as an independent country. Of all the places in the world to hold a conference discussing the defeat of the German Nordic Aryans, one can't help but feel that Tehran, in the heart of the land of Aryan, was not just a random coincidence.
It wasn't a random coincidence. It was a place they had all just invaded together, and it was in a neutral country that was trying to prove its neutrality. Also, the British were also Aryan, as were the French. In fact, you could make a very simple and easy and factually accurate argument that white Russians are Aryan as well. He's just ignoring all of this because the goal here is not to prove that history was a lie, it was to prove the Nazis were right. He's trying to tell you the Nazis were the good guys, and in order to do that, he has to ignore so much about the real world.
Although the United Nations debate on the race issue and its origins was settled in 1950, concluding we are all from the same species, and as Europe and Western sovereign nations undergo the controlled demolition of its individual sovereign nations, one can't help but speculate as to who will next be eliminated from the history books.
Like, that is legitimately just neo-Nazi propaganda that he's citing.
Карлику, co tam wydesz po ruku? Karliku, co po ruku wdesz? Wedu pani no poparze, he, poparze, chodź to wam pokażę, he, pokażę.
My name is Robert Sephyr. I'm an anthropologist. You can find my published work on Amazon. Thank you for leaving a review. Thank you for leaving a comment below and for sharing this video. Please don't forget.
All right, you know what? Let's take a look at him. What do we got? Is he on Wikipedia? He's not. Robert Sephyr, let's see, what's he got in terms of, maybe if we spell it right. No, Robert Sephyr Education, what about that? Let's see. Yeah, it's... People are making a lot of good points out here that a lot of what he says is just straight up racism. Yeah, see, here's the thing. What makes him an anthropologist? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of here. Okay. Modern academia is constantly lying to people. Asiatic Caucasoids is certainly one way to put it. Okay. Okay, yeah, nothing in here that's, American far-right conspiracy theorists ostracized by followers after they found out he was Jewish. Oh my god, he had that many subs? He's down to 419,000. The 1666 thing is back. Oh, wow, he really is Jewish. His father is Ben-Hur Sepehr, who's a Jewish director who made an award-winning film about the Holocaust. Is that true? Yeah, it appears that is true. I mean, Sepehr sounds like a Jewish name. Okay. One of his videos called The Hidden Hand of the Rothschild Banking Family, which incorporates the Star of David in its title. In it, he claims the dynasty pressured the British government into prolonging the First World War, saying they are clearly one of the richest families on earth as well as one of the most corrupt. I mean, that's not really anti-Semitic. That's just calling the Rothschilds out for being the Rothschilds. 2015, he claimed the world's major corporations, mainstream media, intelligence agencies, think tanks, and federally funded universities are responsible for expressing the truth. Now, I will say, I don't like this article because it's putting a lot of words into his mouth without quotations. But yeah, this little bit on Hitler right here is not exactly something that can be ignored. Okay. This Jew is a disinfo agent. Whoo, boy. Big internet tough guy. Wow. Yeah, Iranian Jew. 2010, Ben-Hur made the desperate movie set in Nazi concentration camp. Begs an incarcerated Jewish doctor to treat his dying son. Robert can be seen celebrating the film's award with his father. He was an associate producer on the film. His publishing company, Atlantean Gardens, is registered as a Jewish charity for tax reasons. Wow. Wow. Yeah, the alternating Nazi propaganda and beautiful women singing is certainly deliberate. But yeah, this guy is, I mean, he's just definitely not educated. What's this one say? Fun fact. If you look up Robert Sephyr, his occupation is listed as sales. He did say he's 0% Ashkenazi, which was not a lie. Okay. I mean, could it be a really impressive grift where he's managed to use neo-Nazis to make money? Because if so, honestly, if you manage to find a way to cheat neo-Nazis out of their money while being Jewish, I am impressed with you, sir. But... oh, wait, what's this? Somebody posted in our thing? Let's see. I mean, I don't agree that it's real, but I'm very well versed on it. Host of the Lore Lodge on YouTube if you have interest. YouTube, there we go. I'll comment that bad boy. Yeah, I'm seeing nothing about this guy though. Like, where did Robert Sephyr go to college? Yeah, finding nothing. He does have a history degree. Yeah, I'm wondering about that too, because I didn't see anything about a degree. I just saw that he has books and considers himself an anthropologist. But yeah, you don't get to just, like, claim those things. Especially if you don't have a degree. But here, let's, there's a part 2.
Мысли потаённые, бестолковая любовь, головка дезабубённая.
Attila the Hun was the leader of a tribal empire consisting of Huns, Ostrogoths, and Alans, among others, in Central and Eastern Europe.
It's not entirely... I mean, that's not wrong.
During his reign, he was one of the most feared enemies of the Western and Eastern Roman empires, crossing the Danube twice and plundering the Balkans, but was unable to take Constantinople. He also attempted to conquer Roman Gaul, which is modern France, crossing the Rhine in 451 and subsequently invading Italy, devastating the northern provinces, but was unable to take Rome itself.
So far, this is correct.
He planned for further campaigns against the Romans, but died in 453. Attila was at a feast celebrating his latest marriage to an Eastern Germanic or Gothic bride who may have poisoned him as he suffered a...
This is all pretty on track with the mainstream narrative.
severe nosebleed and choked to death. An alternative theory suggests that he succumbed to internal bleeding after heavy drinking. In any event, after Attila's death, his close advisor, Ardaric, king of the Gepids, a Germanic tribe closely related to the Goths, led a Germanic revolt against the Hunnic Empire, after which the...
That doesn't sound... Huh. I could have sworn they were Dacian. Interesting. I had always thought that the Dacians were further north.
The Hunnic Empire quickly collapsed.
Well, that's because the Hunnic Empire was very similar to the Mongol Empire in that it wasn't really an empire. It was a vast swath of land where there was only one military.
Желание попроще, и перекрестившись, взгляну на восток.
Attila himself is said to have claimed the titles of descendant of the great Nimrod and king of the Huns, the Goths, the Danes, and the Medes. A Khaganate is a political entity ruled by a Khan or Khan.
He can't even pronounce the words right. It's not a cognate. It's either a khanate or a khaganate.
Title of imperial rank equal to the status of emperor.
Well, the Romans probably wouldn't agree with that.
It may also be translated as Khan of Khans, equivalent to King of Kings.
Yeah, that's what emperor means.
By the end of the 12th century, the royal court of Hungary proclaimed their descent from Attila. That said, in World War I, Allied propaganda referred to Germans as the Huns.
Yeah. It wasn't because they thought they were of Hunnic descent.
Nomads invented the stirrup and were the first to put on pants and sit in the saddle.
Nope.
The European fashion of wearing trousers came from the Huns.
Nope.
Nomadic weapons included the saber and bow and arrows. A saber is lighter than
Did this man just say that wearing trousers came from the Huns? Because the Celts, Germans, Iberians, all of them were wearing trousers. Long before the Huns rode into Europe. Long before that.
a knight's sword. With one swing of its blade, a nomad standing in the stirrup could easily cut down his enemy. A nomad's wife could assemble a yurt in 2 hours and tear it down in 30 minutes. In the winter, a yurt was warm, and in the summer, it kept cool. Large yurts were put on carts and hauled by buffalo. From a distance, they looked like a city moving along the steppe. The dome of the Khan's yurt was covered with gold. The Khan's headquarters was known as the Golden Horde. In Europe, they became known as...
Okay, no. The Khan's headquarters was not known as the Golden Horde. One of the hordes was known as the Golden Horde.
the Huns. In the 4th century, the Huns, united under Attila, invading Europe
Attila?
and conquering territory from present-day Chelyabinsk to Munich.
Is this an AI voiceover? This is an AI voiceover.
Simultaneously prompting the Great Migration of Nations. Chelyabinsk to Munich under Attila, invading Europe and conquering territory from present-day Chelyabinsk to Munich, simultaneously prompting the Great Migration of Nations.
Okay, so the Great Migration was not solely caused by the Huns. There was a significant climate change issue at play as well. Also, are we going to mention at any point here that Attila was a Roman commander at one point? That he fought with the Romans? That's how he knew how they worked?
Attila's luck ran out fighting the Goths in the Battle of the Catalonian Plains. Many of his people...
No, not the Goths, actually. The Romans and Frankish Federati. Maybe some Goths, but no, not specifically the Goths.
then settled in Crimea. One can still find traces of the Huns in the genes of Bavarian barons. Attila was preparing to settle in the territory of present-day Hungary and rule his empire from there, but his young wife poisoned him. After Attila's death, the alliance of the Huns disintegrated. In the 6th century, the Turks grew in strength, having learned how to forge incredibly strong sabers thanks to their unique method of melting ore at a temperature of 1400 degrees.
So, I mean, there's no reason to think that these guys had specifically strong weapons compared to, I mean, really anybody. Like, okay.
The Turks created the Turkic Khaganate. Over the course of a century, they conquered the lands along the Silk Road, bringing all international trade under their control.
That's actually really only one small part of the Silk Road that they have controlled there.
Turkic language and culture spread alongside gold, silver, furs, spices, and silks traveling on camel caravans. Beginning in 522, the Turks began using runic writing. They read in columns, like on this epitaph, carved in stone in honor of the Prince Kultagin.
Wait, hang on.
Beginning in 522, the Turks began using runic writing. They read in columns, like on this epitaph, carved in stone in honor of the Prince Kultagin.
Hang on. Where are they getting this? Because that looks very similar to Futhark. Here we go. Runes. Runic alphabets. Did the Turks use runic writing? Cook. What is that? Okay. Got it. So it's 6th to 8th century.
Of the Second Turkic Kagaganate. The Turkic Kagaganate began diplomatic relations
Yeah, it's definitely an AI.
with the Chinese, who wrote the first accounts of the Tartars. In the 6th century, the Turkic
So again, the Chinese did not write anything about the Tartars ever.
Kagaganate weakened and
That is not the term they would have used for these people.
split into Western and Eastern Kagaganates. In the East, the Kimak and Kipchak tribes founded
Kagaganate?
the Kimak Khanate. In the West, Bulgar tribes established Great Bulgaria, led by Kubrat Khan in the Black Sea region. Great Bulgaria lasted only 50 years. Asparuch, Kubrat's third son, went to the lower Danube and there formed the Danube Bulgaria with its capital in Pliska. This is modern-day Bulgaria, whose capital is in Sofia. Kotrog, Kubrat's second son, went north. There, where the Volga and the Kama rivers met, he founded the Volga-Bulgaria state, with its capital in the city of Bulgar. In 922, at the invitation of Iltibar Almush, an emissary from Baghdad arrived in Volga-Bulgaria, marking the region's official adoption of Islam. The secretary of the ambassador, Ibn Fadlan, wrote a very detailed account of his journey. By the way, Rus, which would later become Russia, adopted Christianity only 66 years later.
That's right.
The Russian princes appointed by the Great Khan either paid taxes or served in the army. In return, they benefited from secured borders, safe roads from Crimea to China, and a stable financial system. In this way, the Golden Horde later
I don't see, so you can't just connect the Bulgars and the Mongolians. Those are not things you can do. These are not the same group of people.
nicknamed by the Russians the Tartar yoke, lasted until the 15th century. After a time of troubles, the plague, and the invasion of Tamerlane, the empire began to weaken. Cities such as the capital of Saray began to die out. Its function passed to the city of crime, now Stary Crime, which claimed the legacy of the Golden Horde. At the same time, Moscow entered the political arena as a formidable contender. A fragile union between crime, Moscow, and Kazan exited throughout Eurasia until the fall of Kazan and Astrakhan.
Yeah, this is definitely an AI because it's hitting every single mistake in the transcript. Whoever wrote the script for this did not proofread it.
In 1552, Ivan the Terrible sacked Kazan. The year before, he built a military base in nearby Shvaysk. Everybody in the region took sides, either with Moscow or Kazan. Ivan the Terrible attacked Kazan with the cavalry of the Kazim Khanat's leader, Shah Ali. Ivan the Terrible had an army of 150,000 people and 150 cannons. In Kazan, he was opposed by 33,000 soldiers. Using gunpowder, Ivan blew up the city wall and stormed in. St. Basil's Cathedral, standing in Moscow's Red Square, commemorates this event. When Kazan fell, the Tartars lost their statehood. The Astrakhan Khanat subsequently fell, followed by the Siberian Khanat and later the Crimean, after which the Tartar...
All of the Khanates that were disparate and not part of one super advanced civilization at all
factor faded from the world arena. The myth of Queen Siyumbiki is connected with the capture of Kazan. She allegedly refused to marry the Tsar and leapt to her death from the tower that now bears her name. In fact, the tower was built in the early 18th century, and Siyumbiki was married in 1551 before the capture of Kazan. She lived out her years with her husband Shah Ali. The Tsardom of Kazan came into existence, governed personally by Ivan the Terrible. He created the Kazan Diocese, which forcibly baptized some Tartars. Tartar soldiers established new lives for themselves and for their warriors from the cities of Kashira, Kolomna, and Serpikov. In 1708, the Tsardom of Kazan was transformed into Kazan province under the authority of Count Peter Apraxin, a close friend of Peter the Great. From 1733 to 1774, the province was caught up in a peasant war. Tartars flocked to the aid of the Cossack Emelian Pugachev, who even tried to capture Kazan. In the 18th century,
I'm not sure what point this is all trying to make. This is all just kind of well-known history for the most part.
the era of capitalism, Tartar elite became successful businessmen and industrialists, making leather, soap, textiles, and paper sold throughout Russia, China, and Central Asia. The most successful brands included Arsk fabric, which accounted for about 50% of the Russian market. The Apanyav, Uzyanov, Azimov, Barnayev, Guzmanov families got richer, but they also took care of their people, building mosques, schools, and places for public leisure that remain today. By the end of the 19th century, an ideological split emerged among the leaders of the nation. Some Tartars, known as Akademists, wanted to hold on to patriarchal traditions. Their opponents, known as Jadidists, favored Europe and Turkey, secular education, and Western fashion.
So these videos don't actually say anything. They're just kind of a compilation of random statements that come to no conclusion. Like, there's part 1, this is part 2. Oh, so this is on Atlantean Gardens. Oh boy. So he has 2 channels. The videos get posted very far apart. A lot of this is just him on a beach. See, like, here's the stuff I can get down with. Evidence of Vikings in South America? Okay, like, I'd be willing to take a look at that. But, I mean, we gotta look at who edited the Bible. That's gotta be something. Let's also click on that one, because I'm curious to see where it goes. But yeah, so, yeah, neither of these videos really said anything. Which is weird. That's the part that's got me kind of lost.
Before we dig into part 2, I just want to say...
Oh, right, that's the Mad Vlad one. Mother of all demons. Oh, boy. Bigfoot and the ancient race of giants. Oh, boy. Not Madoc. Come on, man. We know so very little about Madoc. Oh boy. Okay, what do we got here? What did we have pulled up?
Going for a stroll.
Ancient Aryan fairy tales. Jack and the Beanstalk is not ancient. The Smith and the Devil is also not ancient. Alright, let's dive in.
Enchanted forests are described in the oldest folklore from regions where forests are common and are often alluded to as a place of magic and danger, a location beyond where people normally travel, where strange things might occur and strange people might live. Monsters, witches, fairies, dragons, dwarves, elves, giants, gnomes, trolls, unicorns, and other mythical creatures are depicted in books of fantasy for centuries, but whose oral tradition go all the way back to prehistory.
See, that's what bugs me. How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that the oral tradition goes back to prehistory? What is the source for that claim? But let's see where this goes.
Some stories have trees that talk, or with branches that will push people off their horses. Others feature sorcerers and witches living somewhere in the depths of the forest. Anthropologically speaking, they represent places unknown to the characters, and provide situations of transformation and liminality, a word which comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold, and is used in the context of the ambiguity or disorientation that occurs in the middle stages of a rite of passage.
Okay.
When participants no longer hold their pre-ritual status, but have not yet begun the transition to the status they will hold when the rite.
Why shock don't I cover Bigfoot and giants? Yes. I just don't see his going a good place. I mean, did I snag it anywhere? Here. Why did I not click it? I think it was just long. Here. Yeah, we'll do that one in a second.
Is complete. So it's where one is standing at the threshold between the previous
Oh,
way of
thank you,
being
Big Papa.
and the new way or identity, which completing the rite establishes. In Norse myth and legend, Mirkwood was a dark and dangerous forest that
Mirkwood? Okay. Tom Shippey is a well-known and respected guy. It comes from Murkvidar, a wooded region of Ukraine at the time of the wars between the Goths and the Huns in the 4th century. All right, so Mirkwood does actually pop up in Norse mythology. But what does it mean? Okay, got it.
separated various lands. Heroes and even gods had to traverse it with difficulty. Back in the early 1800s, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm were brothers who, while working as librarians, put together a collection of 86 stories, mostly from
No whiskey tonight, it's Tuesday.
Germanic folklore, first published in 1812, and in all of them, the hero always goes into the forest. Acting as a place of transformation, the forest can also be a place of magical refuge, such as with Snow White, who escaped from her stepmother into a forest with dwarves. It is in the forest that the dwarf of Rumpelstiltskin reveals his name, allowing the heroine a way to free herself. In a study published in the journal Royal Society Open Science, a folklorist and anthropologist say that the popular stories and fairy tales are much older than originally thought. Instead of dating from the 1500s, the researchers say that some of these classic stories date back thousands of years. For example, Beauty and the Beast and Rumpelstiltskin to be about 4,000 years old. This contradicts
Okay, where's this coming from, though?
previous speculation that story collectors, like the Brothers Grimm, were relaying tales that were only a few hundred years old. In the article, the team tracked the presence of the tales in 50 Indo-European, or Aryan, language-speaking populations. They were able to find the ancestries of 76 tales, tracking them backward using language trees. As they tracked, they found evidence that some of the tales were actually based in other stories. More than a quarter of the stories turned out to have ancient roots. Jack
What
and
does
the
that
Beanstalk
mean? What does that mean, though?
was rooted in a group of stories classified as the boy who stole Ogre's treasure. And
See, now we're getting a little bit more honest now, aren't we?
could be traced back to when Eastern and Western Indo-European languages split more than 5,000 years ago.
So this doesn't mean that the story of Jack and the Beanstalk is 5,000 years old. This means that the concept of a story where a boy steals from an ogre is 5,000 years old, which is obviously the case.
And a folktale called The Smith and the Devil, about a blacksmith selling his soul in a pact with the devil in order to gain supernatural abilities, was estimated to go back 6,000 years. In it, a blacksmith strikes a deal with a malevolent supernatural being, such as the devil, death, or a genie. The blacksmith exchanges his soul for the power to weld any materials together. He then uses this power to stick the villain to an immovable object, such as a tree, to renege on his side of the bargain. This basic plot is stable throughout the Indo-European speaking world, from India to Scandinavia, according to this research. The findings seem to confirm the long disregarded theory of fairy tale writer Wilhelm Grimm, who thought that all Indo-European or Aryan cultures shared common tales. Some of the fairy tales go back thousands of years older than the earliest literary records, going back into the Bronze Age.
Okay, but again, that is a very broad way of putting it. What was one of these articles? Let's see. Fairy tale origins, thousands of years old, researchers say. Okay. What was the study? All right. Material and methods. The Arne-Thompson Uther Index, a catalog of over 2,000 distinct cross-culturally stable international tale types distributed among more than 200 societies. We focused on tales of magic. Okay. Trees. So what are they arguing? Relationships among many languages, social behaviors, and material cultural traditions often reflect deep patterns of common ancestry that can be traced back hundreds or even thousands of years. Storytelling theories concerning possible relationships between storytelling traditions and the descent of histories of populations have a long pedigree. Ancient Indo-European cultural tradition that stretched from Scandinavia to South Asia. So that's true. Because the corded ware culture, the Yamnaya culture, would fit the bill there. Didn't know about that yet. The outermost lines are coterminous with those of the Great Race, which is commonly called Indo-Germanic, and the relationship draws itself in constantly narrowing circles around the settlements of the Germans. It's my belief that the German stories do not belong to the northern and southern parts of our fatherland alone, but that they are absolutely common property of the nearly related Dutch, English, and Scandinavians. So that is a much less broad claim. State, however, okay. What did this argue? So based on the art, okay, folktale called The Smith and the Devil was estimated to date back to 6,000 years ago to the Bronze Age. Well, that's not possible. That wouldn't be the Bronze Age. Bronze Age would be over for like 1,500 years. Huh? What?
And anthropologists say that the popular stories and fairy tales are much previous speculation that story collectors like the Brothers Grimm presence of the tales in 50 Indo-European or Aryan language-speaking populations.
Yeah, stop doing the whole Aryan thing. It's unnecessary.
They were able to find the ancestries of 76 tales, tracking them backward using language trees. Rooted in a group of to when Eastern and Western Indo-European languages split more than 5,000 years ago. And a folktale called The Smith and Supernatural strikes a deal he then used to renege on his side of the bargain. This basic plot is stable throughout the Indo-European speaking world, from India to Scandinavia.
You could very easily make the argument that these are stories that are just common because of common cultural traits, not that they all trace back to the same spot.
According to this research, the findings seem to confirm the long disregarded theory of fairy tale writer Wilhelm Grimm, who thought that all Indo-Europeans of the study said that this tale could be traced back to the Proto-Indo-European or Aryan society, when metallurgy likely existed and there was an archaeological and genetic evidence of massive territorial expansions by nomadic tribes from the southern Russian steppe and the northern shores of the Black Sea between 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. These findings are interesting, as a little over 7,000 years ago, the Black Sea, which was formed by melted glaciers, was a freshwater lake, until an event that geologists and anthropologists call the Black Sea Deluge happened, which not only flooded the people living near the shores, but the water was no longer usable for agricultural purposes, which may be a major impetus for the first waves of what is historically known as the Aryan invasions, where the Proto-Indo-Europeans, or Aryans, migrated to places where we find rivers for agricultural purposes, such as the Indus Valley, which did not have horses before the Aryans arrived, implementing an ethnic caste system, the remnants and traces of which can still be found in India today, not to mention Sanskrit, which is an Indo-European language.
Okay, so that was all actually correct.
They also settled Iraq between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, establishing what eventually became some of the earliest empires of the Holocene, meaning our current age, the time following the Ice Age. Of course, these Aryans also penetrated into Europe, introducing
Similarities in vocabulary indicating close relationships between select Indo-European languages. Yeah, these are not surprising, though.
domesticated animals to the continent, such as cows, and even today, Northern Europeans are among the most lactose-tolerant people on Earth, a genetic trait that comes directly from milk-drinking Aryans, and is a clear genetic marker of the Aryan roots and genetic affinities in Scandinavia and the Germanic people. Another shared genetic indicator is blood type, such as a high degree of Rh negative, which I cover in my book, Species with Amnesia, and identify as a trait, part of the haplotype that can be traced back into the Pleistocene, or Ice Age, to Cro-Magnon, the name of the first specimen found in a cave near the Atlantic, in the Pyrenees. Cro-Magnon is the direct ancestor of the population that settled near the Black Sea and Anatolia after the Ice Age.
I will say, if there was some sort of flood like that 7,000 years ago, that is certainly great evidence that the flood recorded in the Bible happened. I still think that we're talking about 11,600 years ago, but...
Which incidentally is where Noah settled in the Bible, Mount Ararat, which is part of the Caucasus Mountains in modern Turkey and Armenia, and where the term Caucasian comes from, and from where the Aryans spread their languages, domesticated animals, and agricultural civilization from, and why they were considered the ethnic, blue-eyed nobility of every agricultural society of the Holocene, no exceptions.
Well, they weren't, considering there were a bunch of Semitic cultures and African cultures.
This may help to explain this quote by Rudolf Steiner, when he said, quote, "The greatest part of the Atlantean population declined, and from a small portion are descended the so-called Aryans, who comprise present-day civilized humanity."
Yeah, that, again, God, not Donnelly. We're not bringing up Donnelly.
Which brings me...
The center of the Aryan migrations was Armenia. No! If by the center you mean the middle point, sure.
To another interesting quote by U.S.
But we know that's not where they came from.
Congressman Ignatius Donnelly, who wrote in his book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World.
I don't think he was a congressman. I knew he ran for Congress. Oh, he was a congressman at one point. Huh. Well, either way, he wasn't a historian.
Quote, "Did the Aryan race come from Atlantis? The center of the Aryan migrations was Armenia. Here too is Mount Ararat, where it is said the ark rested, identified with the flood regions, representing the usual transfer of Atlantis legend."
Big problem here with the fact that the Mesopotamians were not Aryan.
By the Atlantean people to a high mountain in their new home. The Greeks, who are Aryans, trace their descent from the people who were destroyed by the flood, as did other races clearly Aryan.
Yeah, that's rough. That's a rough one. All right, Bigfoot time. What is with the music? What is this intro? By the way, I have it on 1.25. Oh no, I don't. Like, why is it Brown-Eyed Girl?
Cryptozoology is a field that aims to prove the existence of mythical entities from folklore, usually rejected in the mainstream, but not totally ruled out either. Probably the most notable example is of an elusive, human-like hominid that is said to inhabit forests or mountains. In 1958, journalist Andrew Genzoli of the Humboldt Times highlighted a fun, if dubious, letter from a reader about loggers in Northern California who discovered mysteriously large footprints. Quote,
Yeah, this one turned out to be a hoax.
maybe we have a relative of the abominable snowman of the Himalayas, Genzoli jokingly wrote in his September 21st column alongside the letter. His article received a lot of interest from the public, so Genzoli and another journalist named Betty Allen published follow-up articles about the footprints, reporting the name loggers had given to the so-called creature who left the tracks, Bigfoot. So allegedly, that's where the name was born, but
That's where the name Bigfoot was born.
earlier accounts of the term may have been documented. Regardless, the most popular modern US concept of Bigfoot can be traced directly to the Humboldt Times stories in 1958, but there are many other various myths concerning large, wild men from around the world.
Do you think he knows about the Saskets?
For example, in Western Canadian folklore, native stories about a large creature that lives in the forest was dubbed the Sasquatch.
No, Saskets, but sure, close enough.
It was described as human-like and hairy, but has never been captured or officially recognized by the scientific community. Hundreds
It actually was not described as being human-like and hairy. It was described as being a very hairy, very large person.
of alleged Sasquatch footprints have been
Or at least very close to being a person.
documented, some measuring up to 24 inches in length, as well as some questionable video and photographs, but none that have been officially verified. A Soviet scientist, Boris Porshnev, suggested that Sasquatch and his Siberian counterpart, the Almas, could be a remnant of Neanderthals. But the fossil evidence suggests
Well, that wouldn't make any sense. Neanderthals were short.
that Neanderthal was not a giant specimen, nor do I believe he had a hairy body like most primates.
Well, they probably were fairly hairy because they also inhabited Europe, and the reason that white people are the hairiest of people is because we're from Europe, where it's cold.
In Asia, we have stories of something called a Yeti, also known as the abominable snowman of the Himalayas. Said to be a large bipedal creature that leaves tracks in the snow, it is also said to dwell below the Himalayan snowline. Despite dozens of expeditions into the remote mountain regions of Russia, China, and Nepal, the existence of the Yeti remains unproven. In 1921, a journalist named Henry Newman interviewed a group of British explorers who had just returned from a Mount Everest expedition. The explorers told the journalist that they had discovered some very large footprints on the mountain, to which their guides had attributed to Mito Kangmi, essentially meaning man-bear snowman. The journalist got the
Alright.
snowman part right, but mistranslated Mita as filthy. Then he seemed to think abominable sounded even better and used this more menacing name in the paper, so that's where that name came from. The Yeti is said to be a muscular, with reddish-brown hair, and weighing over 200 pounds. It is described as relatively short compared to North American Bigfoot, averaging about 6 feet in height, but that's still taller than the average height of the locals. In the ancient legends and folklore of the Himalaya people, the Yeti should be avoided, like dangerous wild animals, and one should stay close and safe within the community. Alexander the Great demanded to see a Yeti when he conquered the Indus Valley in 326 BC, but according to National Geographic, local people told him that they were unable to present one because the creatures were so rare at low altitudes. In 2013,
Interesting.
Oxford geneticist Brian Sykes put out a call to all Yeti believers and institutions around the world claiming to have a piece of Yeti hair, teeth, or tissue taken from a sighting. He received 57 samples, 36 of which were chosen for DNA testing, and compared with the genomes of other animals stored on a database of all published DNA sequences. Most of the samples turned out to be from well-known animals,
Goat antelope.
such as cows, horses, and bears, with 2 of the samples coming from the jawbone of a Pleistocene polar bear that lived sometime between 40,000 and 120,000 years ago.
Man, so someone really dug something up there.
The word Sasquatch is believed to come from a Salish word meaning wild man or hairy man. That said, since the come from a Salish word meaning wild man or hairy man.
Wild man.
That said, since the primary evidence comes from the large footprints and legends, it seems highly probable that rather than belonging to a hominid creature that resembles a Wookiee from Star Wars, the Bigfoot legends may actually be based on larger than average people, which in some cases were historically referred to as giants.
So this is actually this skeleton and this skeleton as well are both in the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. They are both human. This was just gigantism. This one I can't totally remember what the issue was, but yeah, this was the gigantism case. This was a something else,
which were bearded rather than with bodies entirely covered with fur. If this is the case, one can expand the search to include many other myths and legends passed down by native tribal people from various lands. According to numerous written and oral legends of Native American tribes, a race of white giants has existed in
No! God damn it!
the distant past.
He was actually doing well. He was doing well.
And in some cases, the tribes have maintained some empirical evidence. According to Paiute Indian oral legends, a tribe
Nope, they weren't white.
called the Sitka
were
a tribe of tall, red-haired giants that once
They are never once described as giants. Not once not a single time do the Paiute refer to the Sitka as being giant. There is like 1 or 2 sources that refer to them as being tall. Let's keep in mind the average height of a human being today. The average height for an American man is between 5'9" and 5'11". That means that anybody who would be tall to you today would be tall to them as well. And not especially giant, like just tall. Giant would be somebody who's like 7.5 feet tall.
occupied the area in the distant past. Amazingly, 9,400-year-old mummified remains were indeed found in a cave in Nevada, and while controversial, 400-year-old mummified once occupied the area in the distant past. Amazingly, 9,400-year-old mummified remains were indeed found in a cave in Nevada.
What he's left out here is the fact that according to the Paiute, this battle between them and the Sitka happened sometime in the last 1,000 years. And we have 2 whole videos on this. At no point do they say this happened thousands upon thousands of years ago. They just don't say that. And these people are differentiated from Numuzoho and the other giants of Paiute creation stories. So the Sitka they're actually described as being strange Indians, is the exact terminology used. They are strange Indians. They are strange people, strange humans. They're not giants.
And while controversial private testing was published in this case, independent scientific study is not allowed on the remains for political reasons.
That's not true.
And only a drawn...
Well, okay, so yes, independent study, or it's up to the Paiute, basically.
Drawing of a photograph of the remains is permitted.
Stop using the word permitted here.
Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins,
Winnemucca,
a prominent female Native American activist, educator, and daughter of Paiute Chief Winnemucca, related many stories passed down in her tribe firsthand about the Sitka in her book, Life Among the Paiutes.
Many stories, all one of them. I've read Life Among the Paiute.
Published in 1883. Quote, "My people say that the tribe we exterminated had reddish hair. I have some of their hair, which has been handed down from father to son. I have a dress, which has been in our family a great many years, trimmed with the reddish hair. I'm going to wear it sometime when I lecture. It's called a mourning dress, and no one has such a dress but my family." Her book also tells of an alliance between the various tribes to help Paiutes in defeating a group of giants with red hair.
Nope, says nothing about giants.
Who had taken...
Also says nothing about tribes other than the Paiute. It's just the Paiute. But while the claim is dubious, Sarah Winnemucca and her family claim to have been essentially the high chiefs of the Paiute people, in the same way that Rodri Mar was the high king of the Welsh and Brian Boru was the high king of the Irish, where there were other chiefs and other kings, other clans within their ethnic group that they were in charge of. So Winnemucca, according to Sarah Winnemucca, her father and her grandfather were high chieftains of the Paiute people. They were the chief of chiefs. So it wasn't other tribes. They were all Paiute.
Refuge in Lovelock Cave. A large fire was set. Her book also tells of an alliance between the various tribes to help Paiutes in defeating a group of giants with red hair who had taken refuge in Lovelock Cave.
I mean, taking refuge is one way to put it. They had forced them in there and were killing them.
A large fire was set at the entrance of the quarry to get them out, but the giants refused, so it was that many of them died of suffocation and others burned alive. In the early 20th century, archaeologists found thousands of artifacts, and as I said, skeletal remains inside the Lovelock Cave to show that it was not
thousands of skeletal remains, though. Very small number of skeletal remains. Lots of artifacts going back thousands of years.
a mere myth and that the Paiutes told the truth.
For more than a...
No, it does not mean the Paiutes told the truth. It means the Paiutes told a version of the story that they had passed down. It is astonishing to me that this guy will sit here and be like, everything we have is a lie, but the Paiute were telling the truth.
century, a story has persisted about the skeletons of giants being found in Lovelock Cave in northern Nevada.
And for many years, human remains were put on display in museums here and elsewhere, but that changed. Most of the bones and skulls that were once considered to be historical artifacts have been returned to tribes for burial.
If oversized bones from the so-called Lovelock giants ever existed, they are no longer available to the public. But their story behind the legend still remains.
The I-Team's George Knapp has more.
Slicing through the bone-dry Humboldt sink on a long dirt road, it's hard to imagine that all of this was once underwater. Remnants of a vast ancient
I can't believe this guy isn't having his videos completely demonetized.
lake can still be seen in the distance. For generations of first Americans, this was a lush paradise of tules, fish, and waterfowl. Humans have climbed this same narrow path up the jagged mountain for more than 4,000 years. That's how long indigenous peoples lived in and around the Lovelock Cave.
I can't remember the exact details off the top of my head, but no, you did not have consistent, like, organized human habitation of Lovelock Cave. There are a number of periods where it was more active than others, but you have it in continuous use for thousands of years. You don't have people living there consistently for thousands of years.
The roof of the cave is still coated with soot from countless campfires. According to tribal lore, a race of red-headed giants made its last stand in this cave.
Among the Paiutes, would most of them say that the giants were real?
All that I've talked to say yes. I've never heard anybody say no.
DuBois Monk has spent all of her 80-plus years in Lovelock. Her family's home today houses a small museum, jam-packed with artifacts and depictions documenting centuries of native culture and pioneer life. Monk has earned the trust of Paiute elders who say the stories are true, that the red-headed interlopers not only killed but ate their ancestors.
See, there it is. Interlopers. They don't refer to them as giants. They never refer to them as giants.
My Indian friends tell me they were cannibals, that they set traps, and we have a paper in the other room, that they dug holes in the pathways and where they walked, and then covered them, and then the Indians would fall in, and they said the best part to eat were the thighs.
Famed Nevadan Sarah Winnemucca first wrote in her acclaimed book that the Paiutes waged a 3-year war against a tribe of red-headed cannibals before trapping and then killing the last of them inside Lovelock Cave. Mainstream archaeologists have vigorously rejected the entire story, to the point that the State Museum in Winnemucca admonishes visitors at its front entrance that the red-headed giants are a myth. Bill Snodgrass, the curator of the Marsden House Museum in Lovelock, thinks there is reasonable basis for parts of the story. In the early 20th century, guano miners began excavating the Lovelock Cave and uncovered thousands of artifacts along with mummified remains, including a few specimens much taller than the typical Paiute of centuries past. Later, scientific excavations found troves.
See, that's the thing, is there's no... I could find no details on how tall those mummies were.
Of native antiquities, along with bones. Some human remains were destroyed. Others were sent to museums for display. A few, Snodgrass says, were consumed in bizarre initiation rituals. He
That is also true.
adds there is evidence, including basketry, of an unknown culture that lived near the cave. Records show some of them had red hair.
So, unknown culture that lived near the cave is iffy. Part of the problem is that the Paiute did not keep, much like basically every civilization in history, did not keep detailed records of themselves, of what they were doing. If we look at the civilizations that did do it, in most cases, it was done through vanity. It was because a king wanted his exploits to be remembered. They would hire somebody to write a song about it, and then that person would tell the song to other people, and eventually it got written down. But yeah, as for this, it's unclear how unknown that civilization is. There is stuff that may be from a pre-Paiute civilization, yes. It also may be the Paiute simply didn't recognize it when they told everybody it wasn't theirs. Obviously, archaeology has advanced a lot since these books were being written in the 1920s and 30s, but as for unknown Native Americans in the region, there is evidence of a non-Paiute culture there. Whether or not it was non-Paiute in the sense that it was pre-Paiute or completely unrelated is up for debate.
There was definitely a different people here.
Many, if not most, of the visitors who end up at the Marsden House Museum have questions about the red-headed cannibals. The locals still enjoy the debate.
Whether the red-headed giants ever existed, visits to the two museums are worth the drive up to Winnemucca and Lovelock. The Lovelock Cave is in Churchill County, off the beaten path, but not hard to find.
A mummy has been discovered, a mummy that may reveal the secrets of an even older society, one that dates back to the dawn of civilization.
This is extremely significant. This is unprecedented. We haven't had a find of this importance in my lifetime.
One thing that makes the mummy, known as the Spirit Cave Man, so important are these fine hand-woven
So this is not Lovelock. This is Spirit Cave. It's a different cave.
fabrics discovered at the burial site.
These
Just to be clear.
textiles represent an extremely sophisticated ability to weave fabric by hand in a time where we didn't realize that people were doing that before.
The mummy was discovered tightly bound up in this matting. Out of respect for the dead, this photograph and this drawing are the only two pictures scientists will allow to be publicly displayed. Recent tests reveal that the mummy is 9,000...
I will admit that does make me a little bit skeptical of what they found.
...years old. That's 3 times older than any other mummy yet discovered in North America. That news has stunned archaeologists because a mummy can tell...
Especially from back at a time like this where the news... there was no way to fact check the news. So I'm definitely skeptical about the whole you're only allowed to see these two things with the Spirit Cave mummy. The reason that I had said earlier that that was not accurate was because I didn't realize they were talking specifically about the Spirit Cave mummy, just to clarify.
Scientists, how people back then lived, what diseases they had, even what food they ate. Scientists can get that information by studying the mummy's DNA. That requires cutting a small piece of tissue from the body.
That it shouldn't be done.
And that, says Paiute Shoshone tribal leader Alvin Moyles, is desecrating the dead. The mummy was discovered near Paiute Shoshone land. Moyles believes the mummy's spiritual journey has been disturbed, and that the...
Yeah, and I will say stuff like this, as much as I'm sure you guys know I have great respect for Native American cultures and history and all of that, this goes beyond the Paiute and the Shoshone. This is 9,400 years old. 9,400 years. That's not them. I mean, this would be equivalent to the English saying, "Oh, that 10,000-year-old body you found in a bog in Bristol, yeah, you can't take samples of that. That's one of our ancestors." Maybe a more appropriate one would be to say it with like Basques, because they've been there the whole time, as far as we know. But I mean, at that point, in my opinion, this is the kind of thing where you got to get over it. It's all of humanity could benefit from knowing what the DNA of that thing is. And part of the problem is, like, now you've created a situation where if anybody finds that, they're not going to turn it over because they're going to want to get it tested first. So it's going to complicate everything.
The spirit cannot find peace until the body has been properly reburied.
You are bothering the spirit. They're not to be bothered. They're put to rest, and that's where they should be left.
It's very silly that he is acting as though whoever buried that body had the same beliefs as the Paiute.
But scientists claim that the mummy is so old that he couldn't possibly be related to the Paiute Shoshones.
Yep.
That the mummy's tribe was here thousands and thousands of years before anybody else.
They do not appear similar to any living Native American in North America. They have receding...
If this has been given back over for reburial, then that's a significant problem.
Cheekbones, narrow face, long face. Some Indians have some of those traits, but as a group, those are Caucasoid traits. Those are Caucasoid traits. Those are Caucasoid traits.
The two sides are now caught in a catch-22. One way to prove kinship is through the DNA test, but the tribe doesn't want that because it would require further disturbance of the remains.
Well, I would argue, personally, that the tribe can't claim it until the DNA has been tested. I'm not saying it's Caucasian, because that sounds a little ridiculous to me. But they can't claim it's theirs until a DNA test has been performed.
The DNA evidence would be definitive for ruling out certain groups. You can't necessarily prove with it which group it was, but you can rule out contending parties.
Until a decision can be made, the mysterious spirit cave mummy will remain trapped in limbo.
Yeah, he's kind of in the legal, spiritual, ethical limbo.
In Carson City, Nevada, Vince Sterla, Channel 3 reports.
Okay, here we go.
Even mummies can't avoid the law and bureaucracy, it appears. Many archaeologists agree it's entirely possible.
It's actually even older. It's 9400 BC, it looks like. No, it's 10,600 years old. Okay, it was found that it was related to a Native American tribe. Was a Native American. But we're able to dismiss a long-standing theory that a group called Paleo-Americans existed in North America before Native Americans. So this is ironic, because we now know that Paleo-Americans did in fact exist before Native Americans. It's just, were they Native Americans? Okay. Wide-ranging study. All right. Preserved remains of a man in his 40s were initially believed to be 1,500 and 2,000 years old. Then they dated them to 10,600. Fallon Paiute Shoshone claimed it. They sued. 20 years until they agreed that somebody could carry out genetic sequencing. Okay. Was an ancestor of present-day Native Americans. But how? Like, how do we... Which one? Was it them? Like, that's an important distinction. Okay. All right. It was returned to the Paiute, but see, this is the problem, is everybody's asking the wrong fucking questions, man. Oh, were there Native Americans? Or were they not Native Americans? No, that's not the issue at hand here. It doesn't matter if they were Native Americans. I could have told you that without looking at the DNA. What matters is what kind of Native Americans? Where did they come from? What was their story? Who were they fighting? Why were they there? What was their culture like? It shouldn't be, oh, it was Native American, cool, that's the end of the story. Like, no, let's follow what that means. Could a people who had only been here 3,000 years have the things that that person had? It's so frustrating to me. Okay, so they're saying genetically distinct humans called Paleo-Americans. It's just frustrating, because, like, I have more questions, and I can't get them answered because this was returned. Ugh. It's just so frustrating. Like, I get it. I understand the reverence and all of that, but I really do wish.
Mummy is not related to any existing tribe in North America.
Yeah, it sounds like the mummy predated most of the Indian tribes from that part of the country.
There are many stories from many different Indian tribes like Hopi, Comanche, and others who speak of a mysterious race of giants with white skin.
No! He keeps saying that they report a mysterious race of giants with white skin, and they don't. They never describe them as white.
Blonde or red hair, who lived in the Americas.
No, they don't talk about blonde either.
Thousands of years ago.
No! You're taking, he's taking so many different things and just cramping them into one. This is the guy that they told me was better than Mind Unveiled? This guy might be worse than Mind Unveiled.
Mysteriously
like, at least Mind Unveiled, I had to dig to prove him wrong.
Appeared from the face of the planet, but in some cases leaving behind large bones and skulls, many which were dug up and documented in articles published in the 19th and early 20th century newspapers, only to be lost or forgotten in time.
Let's see, what do these even say? The bodies exhumed were of a strange and remarkable formation. The skulls were nearly an inch in thickness. The teeth were filed sharp, as are those of cannibals. The enamel perfectly preserved. The bones were of wonderful length and strength, the femur being as long as the leg of an ordinary man. Okay, so this is New York Times, September 8th. This is Virginia. Okay. Okay, so it's the authority of a gentleman whom it asserts to be of the highest character. But it is not at all attributed to any individual.
Some of these encounters were
I have questions about that, Steve.
Recorded by early European explorers, such as in South America. Patagonia is a region in southern Argentina.
Yes, and the first people to get to Patagonia described these as being like 9 to 10 feet tall. Then the next group got there and said 8 to 9 feet, and then it was 7 to 8 feet.
Chile, extending from the Andes to the Atlantic, and there are many accounts of a legendary race of extremely tall people that were first mentioned by Ferdinand Magellan and his crew, who claimed to have seen them while exploring the coastline of South America in the 1520s. Antonio Pigafetta, a crew member and chronicler of Magellan's expedition, wrote about their encounter, and I quote, "One day we suddenly saw a naked man of giant stature on the shore of the port, dancing, singing, and throwing dust on his head. The captain general sent out one of our men to the giant so that he might perform the same actions as a sign of peace. Having done that, the man led the giant to an islet where the captain general was waiting. When the giant was in the captain general's and our presence, he marveled greatly and made signs with one finger raised upward, believing that we had come from the sky. He was so tall that we reached only to his waist, and he was well proportioned. The captain named these people Patago in Portuguese and Patagon by his men in Spanish, traditionally said to be from pata, meaning foot. However, the gon suffix remains unexplained and was interpreted to mean land of the big feet. Many other accounts of giants in South America followed, and in 1579, Sir Francis Drake's ship chaplain, Francis Fletcher, wrote about encountering very tall Patagonian natives, saying that, and I quote, "Magellan was not altogether deceived in naming them giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men, both in stature and strength of body, as also in the hideousness of their voice. But yet they are nothing so monstrous or giant-like as they were reported." Sort of men. Magellan was not wrote about encounter, and in 1579, Sir Francis Drake's ship chaplain, Francis Fletcher wrote about encountering very tall Patagonian natives, saying that, and I quote, Magellan was not altogether deceived in naming them giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men, both in stature and strength of body, as also in the hideousness of their voice.
So, well-proportioned, off the bat, might sound like, oh, they had the proper proportions despite their height. Usually people who are absurdly tall are pretty lanky. Well-proportioned might sound like, oh, they looked like normal guys who are just really tall. It could also mean that they were swole as hell. And when you look at how the Saskets are described, a little closer to that.
But yet they are nothing so monstrous or giant-like as they were reported. He reduced the height of the...
So yes, Grimkeeper, but that would be over the course of, like, hundreds of years. We're talking about 100 years. You know, this is not even 100 years. I think Magellan was in, like, the early 1500s. So we're talking about, this would be like a couple of generations. You just don't see height average out that quickly. So if these people were probably like 7 feet tall.
The Patagonians from 10 feet to 7.5 feet. In the 1590s, William Adams, an Englishman aboard a Dutch ship grounding Tierra del Fuego, reported a hostile encounter between his ship's crew and abnormally tall and powerful natives. In 1766, Captain John Byron had circumnavigated the world, and word had leaked that the crew had seen 10-foot-tall giants in South America, the official account of Byron's voyage appearing in 1773, and I quote, "When we came within a little distance from the shore, we saw, as near as I can guess, about 500 people, some on foot, but the greater part on horseback. One of them, who afterwards appeared to be a chief, came towards me. He was of a gigantic stature, and seemed to realize the tales of monsters in a human shape. If I may judge of his height by the proportion of his stature to my own, it could not be much less than 7 feet. Mr. Cummings, one of Byron's officers, came up with the tobacco as a gift, and I could not but smile at his astonishment, which I saw expressed in his countenance, upon perceiving himself, though 6 feet 2 inches high, become a pygmy among giants, for these people may indeed more properly be called giants than tall men, the shortest of whom were at least 4 inches taller."
So the shortest of these people are, what is this? 6'6". Big, yes, that's tall. That is very tall. These guys would make a very solid basketball team, but they are not giants.
In his book, History of the Indians, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Natchez, from 1899, Horatio Bardwell Cushman wrote, quote, "The tradition of Choctaw, a race of giants once lived in the state of Tennessee, and with which their ancestors had to fight when they arrived in Mississippi in their migration from the west. The tradition says that the individuals of the giant breed, known as Nuhulu, possessed an impressive stature." Cushman noted that over time, the term Nuhulu became common to refer to all white giants with which the Choctaws fought.
See, he keeps inserting the word white. It does not belong there. Giants, yes. There are stories of giants. Typically, these people are no more than 8 feet tall. Which again is pushing the limits of what the human body is capable of if we're talking about regular humans. If we're talking about something that is humanoid, then we're looking at much larger.
After crossing the Mississippi River. According to the story from 1857, the Comanche chief, Rolling Thunder, said, quote, "Many moons ago, a race of tall white men, 10 feet tall, and much more rich and powerful than any white person living now, who inhabited a large part of the country, stretching from dawn to dusk, their fortifications were crowning the tops of the mountains, protecting their cities located in the intermediate valleys. They exceeded all other nations in all kinds of trades. They were smart and brave individual warriors who ruled the land they had wrested from their former owners. The pale faces today would look like pygmies compared to the giants, both in their art and in their arms."
Wait, who was
Faces
this?
They were who Comanche chief ruled Mississippi River. According to the story from 1857, the Comanche chief, Rolling Thunder, said, quote,
Okay. Did the Comanche really have such a legend? The Epic Times story printed the following account of an ancient white race of giants. All right. The story gives credit to Dr. Donald Panther Yates for documenting the story and provides a dead link to a blog post. Let's copy the link address, and then we go to the Wayback Machine. This is already very bad that we're having to go to Wayback Machine to find a dead blog post. Encountered an error. Oh, it's back. DNA Consultant's blog. Okay, it just took me to the blog itself. Primary business of DNA Consultant seems to be providing genetic ancestry tests. 2012 blog post on the site titled Giants with Double-Rowed Teeth, Flattened Heads, and Six Figures contains the passage reproduced in the Epic Times, but does not provide a citation. Comes from an 1859 book by Nelson Lee called 3 Years Amongst the Comanche. Giant legend on page 141. He was a Texas Ranger who fought in the Indian Wars, became a cowboy in 1844. In April 1855, he was with a group of cowboys who were attacked by the Comanche. He was the only survivor and was taken prisoner. Lee's book purportedly relates his experiences following his capture. According to the summary by John Slimkin, some historians have questioned the reliability of this book. Some writers have pointed out that they have been unable to find evidence that Lee was a member of the Texas Rangers. The anthropologist, Melbourne D. Thurman, has argued that some of Lee's descriptions of Comanche life appear to contradict that of other evidence available. Okay. Setting of his tales about white giants provides another dimension. In the paragraph prior, he writes the following. The Rolling Thunder, in order to convince me of the correctness of a belief universal throughout the Comanche Nation, conducted me to the western side of this strange valley, where I saw with infinite astonishment and surprise the dilapidated ruins of a large town. In the midst of falling walls was so great a number of buildings which, in some remote age beyond doubt, had lined spacious streets. Was what appeared to have been a church or cathedral, its walls cut of stone, 2 feet thick, and in some places 15 feet high, included a space measuring 200 feet in length and perhaps 100 in width. The inner surface of the walls in many places was adorned with elaborate carved work, evidently the labor of a master hand, and at the eastern end was a massive stone platform which seemed to have been used as a stage or pulpit. In my surprise beholding so unexpectedly these evidences of civilization in that wild region, I turned to the Rolling Thunder and asked if he could explain it. Got it. And then this is his account of what happened. At length, in the height of their power and glory, when they remembered justice and mercy no more and became proud and lifted up, the Great Spirit descended from above, sweeping them with fire and deluge from the face of the earth. The mounds we had seen on the tablelands were the remnants of their fortresses, and the crumbling ruins that surrounded us, all that remained of a mighty city. In like manner, continued the Rolling Thunder, the day will surely come when the present white race, which is driving the Indians before it and despoiling them of their inheritance, and which the confidence of its strength has become arrogant and boastful and forgotten God, will be swept from existence. Okay. Remember in this story, the giants were white. He also implies that these giants had a church or cathedral, which would have given the impression these giants were Christian. We know for a fact that there can't have been giants there at any point in the Christian era. Yeah, this just does not track. It's just a garbled version of the Genesis story of Noah's Ark and the Tower of Babel. Yeah, that's probably what it was. I mean, I would not be shocked at all if he was literally just repeating the Christian story of Noah's Ark. Because he may have just realized that he may have thought that Lee just didn't know the story. Okay. Why do you have so many pop-ups, guys? Where did it go? I thought PDF is available here. I don't see it. Um, 3 years among the Comanche. Is there a PDF? Hathi Trust. All right, and he said it was on page 141. Okay, getting closer and closer. What's he talking about here? All right, well, 141 is not about that. Let's grab a word that's on this page. Women. Okay, here we go. So let's say giants. Interesting. It's not there. It's not there at all. What? Okay, so the word in variable is right there. What if I go down here and I type in variable? All right, so even if it's not, all right, how about we type in the word the? So the word the is in here a lot of times. Let's see what we can find on the contents. Three is among the Comanches. Where is the table of contents? Here we go. Introductory, birth and parentage. Search in this text. There we go. There is exactly one use of the word giant in here. Now I'm wondering where the hell the other guy got his stuff. Huh? Well, now I'm just completely lost. Where's the page I was just on? Huh? Oh, there we go. Found it. Okay. Maybe if we look for the word universal in here. Okay. Here it is. Where are we talking about here? Visiting the ruins. Okay, he got married. Not a tree, bush, or even a blade of grass to be discovered over the entire surface of the valley, so that sounds like a desert. Rolling Thunder, in order to convince me of the correctness of belief universal throughout the Comanche nation, conducted me to the western side of this strange valley, where I saw, with infinite astonishment and surprise, the dilapidated ruins of a large town. In the midst of the falling walls and a great number of buildings, which in some remote age beyond doubt had lined spacious streets, was what appeared to have been a church or a cathedral. Its walls of cut stone, 2 feet thick, and in some places 15 feet high, included a space measuring 200 feet in length. He said that innumerable moons ago, a race of white men 10 feet tall and far more rich and powerful than any white people living now. Innumerable moons ago. Could he be talking about the Spanish? Okay. All right. It was, as I then understood it and now believe, to enter into an alliance with the view of waging an exterminating and implacable war on every train of emigrants or other party moving towards California, Oregon, the Great Salt Lake, or other points in either of those directions. Okay. Huh. So innumerable moons ago, and this is something that I've noticed Sepehr doing a lot, could mean a lot of things. Especially to a people who did not consider time on the same scale that we do. But if we look at Comanche territory, the other thing I want to look at is now we're talking. Now we're talking. I wonder if they're talking about the Anasazi. Because if we look at this, yeah, all right. So they built this stuff, and if we look at the location, I mean, we're lining up pretty tightly here. Like, this is Anasazi. Could easily be overlapping into wherever he was in Comanche territory. The other possibility is that whatever he was talking about was built by Spanish colonists. Abandoned Spanish colonies in the Southwest. Let's see. So I'm thinking the issue here might simply be what qualifies as innumerable moons ago.
Many moons ago, and faced it becoming too proud. The Navajo is another ancient.
Because if we look at the what they're talking about here, right? They're talking about the a lot about that story is very plausible. What's very implausible is them being 10 feet tall and them being, well, it's really just them being 10 feet tall. If they're white, it was probably just the Spanish. There's also, of course, been the story of Maddock, who supposedly came over from Wales in 1177. But yeah, I have a hard time buying that, especially given the Christian era. Basically, what Sepehr's saying here can't possibly be true. There can't have been a race of white Christians living in North America at the time of this ancient flood that he's talking about.
Tribe that provides evidence of white giants they call the people of Starnik, describing them as a race of white giants, the largest mining technology that had built strongholds along the Americas that dominated the West, enslaving the smallest tribe. Eventually, the mysterious Starnik became extinct, or back in the heavens.
Okay, what's he talking about here, though? Like, where's... the largest mining technology... What did that say? That had built strongholds. Yeah, I mean, this is coming up nowhere. Navajo story of white giants. Starnik people. Okay, there's not even a page for it. Alright, what's he grabbing here? It looks like for this video, he basically just read off the Ancient Origins page. This is Yates. Okay, so this is the same blog. But what's his source for it? Yes. Yes. Okay. So he's still got stuff on the site. Yeah, this is interesting. This is a very badly built site as well. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely giving me some stuff to look into. For sure. But I'm not convinced, to say the least. But, alright, I mean, that's about all we got time for tonight. We're already over time, but, I mean, we definitely got more to look at for the next few streams, oh boy. But, alright, thank you guys for hanging out. This was a lot of fun. Lot of anti-Semitism in this video. Really fascinating. How many times he chose to insert a swastika for no reason. Which is just, I'll never understand. But, alright. I will be back on Thursday night. That will be for one of the gaming streams. And then again on Friday night, also a gaming stream. Probably going to be Lethal Company again. We've been having a lot of fun with that. And if I can get a squad together for GTFO, then we will do that. If you haven't come to hang out during those videos, they are a lot of fun, even if gaming's not your thing. Because me and the boys are funny, I'd like to think. So, you know, with that said, I will see all of you guys on Thursday. And if I can find the... Oh, there it is. Bye, yes.